everybody, this is Rebecca Totilo with AROMAHUT Institute, and today I want to talk about how much essential oil you should be using in your blends. Now you're going to find all kinds of information online, from variations of 1% to 50%. And as a certified aromatherapist, this is probably one of the most frequently asked questions. And it's probably the most important question that should be asked. So in this video today, I want to talk about the dilution rates and the safe ratios that you should be using when you're making products at home and using your essential oils safely. So let's just talk a little bit about how much you should be using. Now it's going to depend on the product that you're making, as well as who's going to be using the product and the size of the container that you're going to be using. Now, when you look at a 5 ml bottle, if you have a 5 ml essential oil, this is already concentrated. And in this case, a 5 ml bottle is equivalent to about a teaspoon. So this bottle, as a 5 ml, will hold approximately 10 drops. And I know there'll be a little variation of that, but we just want to sort of generalize it here, that this would be about 100 drops of essential oil. So a 15 ml bottle, which is about this size here, will hold approximately 300 drops, which is equivalent to a tablespoon. So you can see that it's quite a bit of oil. And when we're talking about dilution, we're talking about using some form of carrier oil, and this one is almond oil. Now you could use coconut, flaxseed, avocado. There's about 120 different carrier oils that you could be using to create your blend. I like some of the easy ones like jojoba and coconut, because these both have unlimited shelf life, so you can just pull it out and use it as needed. Now, if I was at home and I just wanted to do something really quick right before I go to bed, let's say, and just pull out some oil, I probably would be using my carrier and putting in about just a little bit in my palm, and I would add maybe 1 to 2 drops of the essential oil into my palm, and then rub it together and just use it on the body. And that's one of the main reasons we do use a carrier oil, because we want to be able to spread it out over the course of the body in a large area. Now there's only a couple of oils that you wouldn't need to dilute, and that would be in the case of maybe doing a first aid to a cut or scrape or burn, and you might use lavender essential oil on it. Or another oil would be like tea tree, using it as an antiseptic on a cut. But other oils, in most cases, you're going to want to dilute them all, which means you're going to be using some form of carrier. Now, it's not always going to be an oil. Sometimes you might want to use bath salts. Now, in this case, this is Dead Sea salts. And if I wanted to add the essential oils into the bath, I would be using probably about, this is probably about a 1/4 cup. I would use about a 1/2 cup of salts with about 8 to 10 drops of essential oil into the bath. Now I would have it running, under the running water, and then dispersing it, throughout the water, just spreading it around, swishing it around, so it's not just floating on the top of the water. Now another form of using your oils might be in something like this, which is called an inhaler. Now this is just like a pocket-sized inhaler, which you would just be adding the essentials directly into the cotton wick, and then it would go inside here. And this is one of those cases where you don't need to use a carrier oil. You would just use it straight on the cotton wick, because it's not coming in contact with the body. And so whenever you're using a blend on the body, you definitely want to make sure that it is diluted properly. For everyday use, a 2% to 3% dilution is a safe amount for a healthy adult. So what does that mean? That means that if you're using, let's go back to our bottle here. Let's say you have an empty bottle that you want to make your blend in. So in this case, you're going to take your 5 ml bottle, and this is 100 drops. So a 2% dilution would be 2 to 3 drops, right? 2 drops per 100 drops of carrier. Now, if it's a 3% dilution, that means 3 drops per 100 drops of carrier. So this is just going to be 2 drops of essential oil, and the rest would be filled up with our carrier oil, or if we're going to be using a different type of carrier like salts or something else like that. Now, that also means then if you have a bigger bottle, and if we're going to be using, let's say, a 15 ml, well, now we got to do a little math, because this holds 300 drops, right? Okay, again, this is approximate. So in this case, if I was going to be doing a 2% dilution or 3%, just depends on the use. In this case, it would be 2 times, right? We're going to multiply it out because it's 300 drops. So it would be 2 times 3 is 6. 6 drops for this particular size bottle. And so that's why it's important to know what size bottle are you going to be putting it in and who's going to be using it. Now, in the case of pregnancy, when a woman is pregnant, a safe dilution rate is about 1%. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it is enough, and you want to make sure that it is safe for you to use while you're carrying the baby to full term. Also, with young children, you want to use very little essential oils on them. So in that case, for a child, let's say 12-year-old, you're going to want to use only about a 1 to 2% dilution for a child. Now, for elderly, and it also, you need to take in consideration their health, whether they're on medications, is there any kind of counterindications that are going to happen. We want to make sure it's safe, so in that you will use a 1% dilution. I actually have a funny story to tell, which is sort of sad when you think about it, because this is generally the case, that most people don't understand how concentrated essential oils are, and also they're sort of caught in the mentality that we have with the over-the-counter medicines. Now, a gentleman had called into a radio talk show that I was on as a guest, and he said that he had a story he'd like to share. So I said, okay. He said, well, I heard you speak several years ago in some city, and he said, remember you mentioning that peppermint was good for acid reflux. I said, yeah. So I had no idea where the story was going, but he said, so he got the peppermint and he took it home and he got his spoon out, and I was like, oh my gosh. He literally took that bottle of essential oil and poured it into the teaspoon and took the whole thing. He said he was writhing on the floor in pain, but he got rid of his acid reflux. Well, I thought that was hilarious, but it's also scary. And it really makes you wake up to just how powerful these oils are, as well as the ignorance of a lot of people who are not familiar with them and don't know how to use them. And so that's why it's important for us to make sure that we use them in a safe manner. Now, you can add them to creams, to lotions, and you can use them every day in those ways, as long as they're diluted properly, because you want to cover the whole body with them. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to fool with all that. I just like using my essential oils just straight up. Well, the problem with that is that if you are applying essential oils directly to the skin, it can actually cause an irritation to the skin, as well as, when you think about it, it is evaporating directly off of the skin. It's not being held to the skin, so you're actually losing the benefits of it. So that's one of the reasons why it's important for us to dilute our essential oils. So for everyday use, we want to dilute our oils 2 to 3% dilution, which means we're only going to be using 2 to 3 drops per 100 drops of carrier. So we've talked about the 2 to 3% general dilution rate for a healthy adult. Let's talk about children now. Now for babies, we want to make sure it's very diluted, so you're only going to use 0.5%, which means that's 1 drop for 2 tablespoons. Okay, so that would be a bottle that's bigger than this, about a 10 ml bottle. Okay, because we want to make sure it's very diluted. That would be for a small baby between 6 and 24 months. For elderly and for pregnant women, we want to make sure it's a 1% dilution, as well as if it's a facial product. Something you're going to be using on the face, you want to use a 1% dilution, so that's 1 drop per 100 drops of carrier. 2 to 3% would be your general dilution for body lotions, creams, bath salts, and for daily living. So that would be 6 drops of essential oil for a 2 teaspoon carrier oil 10 ml bottle, or if you're using the 15 ml, you would just use the 6 to 9 drops of essential oil for and then the carrier would fill up the rest of the space. Okay, and so if you do need to go all the way up to a 5% dilution, which would be in the case of for an acute condition, or maybe for your first aid kit, this would be a short-term use. You could use a 5% dilution, and that would be 15 drops per 2 teaspoons of carrier oil. Hope that helps you. We'll have the chart for you available on their website, so just use the link below. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I would love to hear from you. And if this was helpful, please like this video and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you next time.